It was one of the best decisions during my studies to join Academy Consult. We use the network Munich offers. Like, Munich offers such great student initiatives. So I wanted to be part of this entrepreneurial spirit that START offers. So study from my side are a really low priority, especially because like every time when all my friends are studying for the exams, I realized how much I learn when I'm actually not studying but working for my business.
Welcome back to Meet Us, everybody. Kick off our interview series where I will subsequently invite more and more people from the ecosystem so that you can hear different voices and different founding and just personal stories. So today's guest is Darius Göttert. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Spreadly app. And Spreadly is an app where you can get your customized digital business cards with countless features. They have over 12,000 users as of right now in around 100 countries. He founded his first startup when he was just 15, was both a board member at Academy Consult for client relationships and an active fellow and STARTie at START Munich. So without further ado, let's get straight into the episode. This is going to be a good one.
Welcome to Meet Us, Darius. I'm super hyped to have you here as our first guest. So I think this is going to be an incredible episode with a lot of interesting facts. So maybe if you want to start with yourself a little bit on your journey. You started your first enterprise when you were 15 and worked at a startup very early on. Maybe you can talk the audience and me through this. What motivated you to do so?
Thank you for having me here today, Mariana. I really love this format and that you give a few more insights on what students can actually do here in Munich in terms of student initiatives. As you already mentioned, I started my first kind of enterprise when I was 15. So we had a school company or a students company. So a couple of friends and myself, we started our own little project at school. We were actually selling kind of self-made watches or clocks that you can then, for example, give as a present to your parents or to your grandparents. So it was really popular also at our school. And then I came into a startup when I was 17 doing school. So I did an internship there. They were called Three Bears, known from a TV format called Die Höhle der Löwen. And I joined them in the 11th grade and actually then stayed there for about 3 years. So it was quite a nice journey to see this little startup with a couple of people grow to an actually quite big company with like a 10 million revenue. Quite a nice experience.
For sure. I mean, I feel like that definitely helped you a lot along the way, I'm sure. And maybe one more thing. You talked about your meeting with Celine Flotters-Villas and how it motivated you to post a little bit more on LinkedIn. And I think it's very interesting because it was just a year ago, but you have like over 13,000 followers at the moment. So how was kind of your journey to build your online presence, maybe for somebody who's also interested in doing that? Have you got any tips or how was it for you?
I met Celine Flotters-Villas at the Apps Symposium in 2021. So it was in September, so roughly 1.5 years ago. And I was always like curious on like posting on LinkedIn, but also a bit scared of this kind of publicity that maybe comes with it, maybe not. I mean, it's not necessarily the case that your post gets shown to everyone. But I'm really having fun doing this. So I like sharing my experience first, like from student perspective, and then also from the perspective of student consultant, and now from the perspective of kind of a founder or also a young founder. And so what I did to grow my audience, I basically regularly posted. I also interacted a lot, especially interaction. I always had the feeling that they bring the most followers. When you comment, comments get kind of quite a lot of likes. And I also met lots of people in presence. So I went to many events, especially after Corona, and many of the people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn or that also follow me on LinkedIn, I met in presence.
So cool. And that kind of brings us almost to what you do at Spreadly, I feel like, because I looked at your website and I mean, it's insane what you offer. And at the moment you have more than 11,000 users in over 95 countries, which congrats, that is a very big number. And more than a year ago, you started this journey. So maybe you can talk us a little bit through your founding story. How did that come about?
we basically started Spreadly out of another project. So my co-founder Florian started to develop a one-link solution, kind of like a Linktree, but GDPR conform, for a friend of him. And then when his product, so he did it about half a year, and when his product was ready, he asked me if I want to do the whole business, so sales and marketing side. And that was about a year ago, when we then started working on Spreadly more intense together. And when we also decided, okay, this one link solution product is kind of cool, but it's super hard to find customers. Also, Linktree has below 1% paid user growth, and we wanted to develop a product where we can also, actually make some money with. And so we kind of pivoted. We did a lot of interviews, asked many people, wrote many people, hey, what do you need? Because we really saw there is a market for digital business cards, and the tool we have is already very good. We just need a couple more functions, and especially need some functions that make it easy for businesses to use it. And then we developed all these functions, or actually Florian, my co-founder, developed all these functions. And we really brought out a tool that is made for businesses, and that is a B2B SaaS solution, and are now scaling it worldwide. So in the past year, we tried out a lot, made many mistakes, also learned a lot, and now found a way where we can really see a good customer growth. So actually, we are already over 12,000 now, and in a bit over 100 countries, which is pretty cool, because we're not doing too much for international expansion yet, but the things we do really work out well. So we also want to scale this in the next years.
That sounds so cool. So you talked about a little bit the beginning. So I mean, how was it for you to acquire maybe your first big customers, and also like your first couple of months, because you had already around 3,000 users at the beginning, which is like the initial phases for a lot of startups, the kind of difficult part. Do you have any learnings on your first months maybe you want to share?
Yeah, especially in the first month, the network is so important. So Florian and myself, we both know each other from Academy Consult. So we both were at the student consultancy before, and we had a really good network because of Academy Consult, also because of especially Entrepreneur and BDSU and all these other kind of groups or communities that we could ask for, especially feedback in the first step, but also for like test users. So the first bigger company was Academy Consult, where we could really offer to all members and also test out lots of things, because we got the first-hand feedback. We could improve from day to day, and it's especially important in the beginning not to be scared to like ask for help, ask people what do they need, what do they like, what especially don't they like, and to really use the existing network to, on the first hand, build build the product with the feedback, but also like now we see also like a couple of months ago we saw that people who kind of use Spreadly like from the beginning are also telling now their employees or their colleagues or their friends, hey, this cool tool, don't you want to use it for your company? And that was from the beginning on one part of our strategy, that we said, okay, we are now targeting also a younger group, lots of initiatives, giving Spreadly to them for free, and they will probably then also either become customers or kind of recommend Spreadly to potential customers.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good one. I feel like we're definitely going to talk about Academy Consult and Start Munich in this interview as well. So we'll circle back to this. You also were part of the Master Accelerator German Entrepreneurship, as I understand. How did that also shape you in kind of your founding journey?
Yeah, Master Accelerator was for us a really big benefit. So we actually right now is the end of the first part of the program. So it's in total a 24-month program with the first 6 months in presence, like in the office. And we really learned a lot, got feedback in every area of our business. And I'd say like for most challenges that come, we are either prepared or we have at least the people who know how to tackle these challenges. So we get really good mentors. We have a big network that we can also use from Master Accelerator, and especially when it comes to fundraising, which is at this moment not planned, but could be a part of the future. We are definitely prepared to do this fundraising round, or how many fundraising rounds we ever need. So I think it prepares oneself as a founder, but also the company itself, for a lot of challenges, delivers lots of first-hand insights, also with already successful founders that went through this program a couple of years ago when it was still like the LMU Entrepreneurship Center. So I think in general, I definitely recommend it to every startup that kind of has already is close to product market fit, is already funded, and maybe or already found the company, and is now on the way to gain real traction, to gain first paying customers, and maybe also wants to do a funding round or expand into other countries.
Awesome. We will definitely follow your journey. You are a very young founder, and I feel like maybe people are asking us, okay, how does Darius do it? Like, how do you handle your studies as well? And then also you talked in a LinkedIn post about the privilege of being able to found, because I mean, it is kind of a financial burden, especially if you do not maybe have backing at the moment, or you want to bootstrap it. So do you have any tips on somebody who may not have the financial resources but still wants to found, or how to manage it all with like study at the moment?
Yeah, I think first topic in regards of studying, like from the beginning of my studies, I always did like a part-time study. So I always studied Friday evenings and Saturdays because I worked full-time in the startup, which I think made it easier to do other things. But especially when I then joined, and in the first semesters, it went really well. So studies and work works out really well. But what didn't work out really well was studies and work and academy consult. So that is when I started to really set priorities on work and academy consult and not studies. So that was kind of the first time where I really said, okay, studies, it's actually not as important as everybody thinks, or as many people think. And that kind of continued since about 2 years now, I'd say. So I always deprioritize studies when it comes to like the own company projects from academy consult, also Start Munich, also other initiatives, also events. So studies from my side are a really low priority, especially because like every time when all my friends are studying for the exams, I realized how much I learn when I'm actually not studying, but working for my business or working on new projects. I'm also always curious on working on new projects. So that just for my personal development brings me so much more than maybe this piece of paper at the end of a couple of years of learning something that I could Google anytime. So I think from my perspective, it's not, especially for a founder, not super necessary to have their bachelor's degree or their master's degree or anything else, but to gain really practical experience and do an internship at a startup or found something by themselves or go into an initiative or so. I think this is far more valuable. And in regards of financing, basically when I moved to Munich 2017, and also before that, I always worked. So I moved here. I was here about 16 days before the Oktoberfest started, and I then worked at Oktoberfest. Before that, in my hometown, I worked in the cinema when I started there when I was 15. Also made some money with some eBay reselling when I was 13 and 14. So I basically always worked, and I always put some money aside. And that allowed me then to also say, okay, I can found this company, I can work on Spreadly. And I mean, we are now into this for 13 or 14 months, and we still haven't paid ourselves a euro. So we are not paying ourselves yet. Every money that comes in goes back into the company, making it hopefully from €1 €2 in the next 2 months or so. But yeah, it's definitely hard to found a company when you don't have any financial backup. If this is the case, I'd recommend doing, and this sets maybe the priority of studies even lower, but doing, for example, a working student job at another startup, and while that funding yourself, or doing, if you have the opportunity to work for a student consultancy like academy consult, then do consulting projects like 16 hours a week maybe, that really pays you well, and you can finance your own company, or at least trying out your own company. Or of course, I mean, there's also lots of support from the government. It's always worth trying to get some. For us, there was not really the right program that we could use, but also like with Master Accelerator, for example, we got a free office for half a year. This is already so much money, if you say so, and it was also great for the team, that it was a huge benefit. But yeah, I'd say if there's a possibility to lower cost and really go down to a minimum where I say, okay, I really just need to work like 10 hours a week, I can pay my life with this, and the rest I can put into my startup, then I would definitely go that way.
Thanks so much, Darius. I feel like there are so many things which the listeners can really take away. I feel like in Germany, there's really this almost obsession with like, you have to have this degree, which is in other countries not as much. And as you said, like you learn so much on the fly that it's not that it doesn't help, but it's definitely, there are other skills needed, soft skills, which you just do not even take there. And financial literacy is definitely something which our generation will have to look into much more. So many points there as well. So you talked a little bit about your team as well. And what I found really interesting is that you're a complete remote team. So I feel like that's something really interesting. How do you enable like having a really good team culture when you don't see each other as much, maybe?
Yeah, so actually I need to correct it a little bit. So we were a hybrid team like until last week, I guess, when kind of the office phase ended. But from the beginning on, we had like colleagues, or there was no nobody was forced to come to the office. People came, but because it was also really a great office, but nobody was forced. And we also had 2 people working from Sweden, for example. I myself was often on vacation in any countries ever, and we were like from the first day on, we were focused on building this company like more or less remotely, so that everyone can work whenever and wherever they want. I think especially important is to empower the people to come to team meetings. So we did a team meeting every Monday, every Friday, where we not only share kind of professional insights, so what happened the week, what is good, what was bad, but also like personal stuff. So like what are the plans for the weekend and what you're looking forward for the most, or like achievements also personal wise. And I think this really helps also to grow the team together. And what's also important, and this is a bit depending on everyone personal, but we really empower the people to do like coffee catch-ups with like the newbies, for example, so that you just meet for, I don't know, 15-30 minutes or whatever for a coffee break, and really get into chatting with each other. But additionally, we also did some team events, especially here in Munich, where we met like I'd say minimum once every 2 months, but more like every month, and really try to come together and say, okay, I mean, everyone's working where and when they want, but there should be some events where everyone sees each other, which is especially important for a great company culture, I guess.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a really big motivator for people to join a company. Like, who are the people you're actually going to spend time with, and what is the company style like? And you also said very presently that you hire for attitude. So what is kind of something that all Spreadbees have in common? Like, how do you go about this?
Yeah. I think one thing they all or most of them have in common is that they are from Academy Consult. Like we actually hired a lot of people from Academy Consult. But I think like with this hire for attitude, for us, we really have a young team, or we had, I mean, also there are changes in the startup, like the team is not as big as it used to be. We automated lots of things. We're also using AI for many tasks. So we optimized, as I said, we tried out a lot with many people, but we also found a way where you can say, okay, we can build a really profitable and scaling startup. And what we really, or what's important for us when we say hire for attitude, is that someone was really into Spreadly, like that they don't just want to do like a startup internship or working student job or anything, but they are really like curious working on Spreadly, like see what we are doing there, and we're just like, wow, okay, I want to be a part of this. And we felt that a lot in the last 6 to 8 months, where people saw, okay, hey, the team's growing and this all looks kind of cool, and it's like a fast growing startup story, and I want to be part of this. And usually, like yeah, I'd say in all of the cases, I guess, people approached us, can I join Spreadly? And this is pretty cool. So this is actually what we wanted. And then we didn't have a look on, okay, does this person have like huge sales experience or huge marketing experience? So we rather looked at, does this person have the power, and also does it make kind of the time and the energy that it needs to also grow with this startup? So we really focused on the person itself, on the attitude, and say, okay, if you have the energy, if you really want to be part of this journey, then yeah, please be. So yeah, that was more important for us.
That's really cool. We teased a lot academic consults, so we'll get there in just a second. Maybe one last question to Spreadly. You talked in Startup Munich. I will also link down the different articles about you guys, about your vision of being kind of a digital networking assistant and provide like a holistic solution. So I found this really interesting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how did you go about defining your vision, and was it kind of a reverse engineering? Like how do you go about that, about making that a reality?
A very good question. Like when we, as I already said, when we first started Spread, we started with the one link solution, then we developed this kind of a digital business card solution. And what we are now doing is like we are focusing on everything that happens after you exchange content. So I mean, this is actually, it's just the first step of a relationship, that you exchange your contact data, or one of the first steps. And we, in the future, want to also focus on what's going to happen after you exchange your contact data. And I don't want to spoil it too much, actually, but we are already working on a solution where you can easily manage your contacts, where you can give recommendations, where you can forward or connect people, where you can also say, okay, for example, like you can kind of imagine it as a simple tool or simple app where it says, okay, one friend is looking for an internship, the other one is offering an internship. I can easily connect these two people that would have maybe never met, but are both contacts for myself. But also many other tools, especially when it then comes to events where certain people are, and where you can maybe then already connect before an event, or see the background of a person, not only like from their LinkedIn profile, but from a much more a much bigger perspective, with more information that people share. But yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much, but we are currently working on it. And actually, how did we come up with this? It's basically most of the things that we developed in the past came from feedback, or from our customers or potential customers said, hey, it would be cool to have this, or cool to have that. Like also one customer, he actually invited us for lunch. He said, guys, I really need ChatGPT in my digital business hub. And we were like, well, why do you need ChatGPT in your business card? So now it's like a chatbot, so people can ask questions and I don't have to answer, but they see whatever they need to see. And yeah, it was a customer approach, and it's one of our most loved tools in the digital business card, that people use their own little chatbot with ChatGPT in there. And as this tool, many of the things we develop come from customers. And so also in this, like what happens after I connected with someone, also came from a couple of customers actually. And so we evaluated this. Does this follow also our journey? So we want to go this way. Does it go kind of the other way? But it also followed the way we want to go. So yeah, it's definitely constantly improving, constantly getting new feedback, new requests, which make the tool better and better.
That sounds really, really exciting. I mean, we're definitely going to follow that along. And I feel like that is something we always hear, like being customer centric is the goal to success at the end, because the customer retention and just the lifetime value of is going to be higher at the end of the day. So that sounds really exciting. All right. So let's jump into Academic Consult a second. So you were a board member for client relationships, so Vorstand Kundenbetreuung. You started that actually, as I understand, very early on. So how was that process like for you? What was some of your key takeaways of your time at Academy Consultant as board member?
Consult was and I mean that always sounds a bit stupid, but it was one of the best decisions during my studies to join Academy Consult, and I think nearly everyone from Academy Consult is gonna say that probably, because the experience you gain there in just such a short period of time, it's just crazy, and I think there's hardly any other internship or initiative or anything else that you can do. Maybe funding your own company, yes, but you have like learnings from over 20 years and over 400 or 500 people, I'm not sure right now, like developing this initiative, and you get all this information within like the first 6 months. You learn so much, you have so many workshops, you do your own internal project. It's just crazy how much time you also spend, but also how much you learn in these couple of months. And yeah, as I said, like in Academy Consult, it's always the case that you join for trainee semesters. So for the first 6 months, you're kind of a trainee, and after that, it decides if you're going to be a part of Academy Consult or if you're not. And actually, there was this opportunity, as there was no member of the board for the whole customer relations area, to just say, okay, I'd be interested. Why don't I apply for it? And then after my trainee semester, I kind of directly applied for it. And then we have this road where people say, okay, let him do that. Also, probably because I was working in sales before. I was working as a key account manager for Study Smart, and also at Three Bears before I was mainly working in sales. And it was great to, on the one hand, get this trust from the people that you barely know, or that you just know for a couple of months now. And it was an amazing also learning to do this job, more or less. I mean, it is kind of a full-time job, so member of the board at Academy Consult, definitely lots of work. It's lots of meetings, lots of different topics. We have 5 board members always, so it's crazy how many different kind of things come up that you never guess when you apply for this job. And especially like from the customer relations side, it was cool to see like there were high managers from big companies. There were also CEOs from smaller companies, but they were really interesting people that we worked with that requested different projects. And I was kind of the person managing, or in this position is managing all these customer relations, which is pretty cool. And I mean, you hardly get the chance as a young person, like with beginning 20, to do this job. And it takes, I guess, decades probably to ever do this job again in a real company. So it's learning I can definitely recommend to everyone. I mean, it's, as I said, a huge time invest, but also like after this training semester, I think the second semester where you just learn so much more and gain so many experiences.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of these initiatives, the more you give in, and that's always what I say, the more you also get out. And so I feel like if you really immerse yourself in this and you have the chance to be even like a board member, then that's definitely an incredibly steep learning curve. So we talked a little bit about financing before, and you talked also about, you know, being a student consultant, but I also saw that you were also a freelance consultant, and I didn't really hear about that as much. So I thought that was very interesting. How did that come about? And do you have any tips for somebody who would like to do this? I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, I also became a freelance consultant. It basically started when I was still working at Three Bears, and then became 2 years later became member of the board for Academy Consult. And when I was at Three Bears, one of our customers that I managed said, "Hey Darius, whenever you're looking for a new job or want to do something on project base, hit me up." And we kind of stayed in contact over these 2 years, so maybe WhatsApp like once a year or so, or every half a year, just how you're doing, how are things. And then there was this opportunity when I became a member of the board to like mainly focus on academy consult, but also do like a little freelance project. That's especially what I also said before, like you can do, or what I basically did was as much as needed to kind of pay my life in Munich, but then also focused on the thing where I actually learn much more, and that was academy consult. So I started, it was a little startup here in Munich, also in the food area, which also Spreadbees was. So I worked 3 years in the food area or FMCG area, and yeah, then I joined them as a freelancer. Also had a couple of other startups where I either joined for a couple of strategy or sales sessions, or also became part of a mentor, also sometimes not that well paid, but just a great experience. So yeah, it kind of basically was already the opportunity years ago, and then I took the moment where it fitted the most and took this opportunity.
That's really cool. I mean, definitely if you also keep in mind like the opportunities that come along the way, and then I feel like when you put it out there, then it just kind of also grows more naturally, because people know, okay, Darius, he really knows about startups and food tech, and then let's do something together. So that's very, very nice. Okay, so you were also actually part of Start Munich, so we can move on to another one. So I myself unfortunately haven't been, but maybe you can like tell a little bit about what motivated you, and like what was the biggest benefit of kind of being a STARTie?
Yeah, being a STARTie is, it's like it being itself is already a benefit, I'd say. But it was like when I worked for startup and then for scale up, I was like, I wanted to learn more about consulting. Then I joined Academy Consult, and I really still like consulting, but for me, startup was always like more the way I want to go. And then I met a couple of people from not only Start Munich, but also Start has a couple of chapters all over Europe, also from Start St. Gallen and a couple of other, or Vaduz and a couple of other chapters. And all these people were really like entrepreneurial thinking. Everyone had their entrepreneurial mindset, and everyone was cool, like whoever you met. And they were just like always good to talk to. And I just wanted to be part of this initiative, to be honest. So I wanted to be part of this entrepreneurial spirit that kind of Start offers. And so I applied, also then went into the interviews and got into Start. And the first thing I guess we did back then was a hut weekend. So we went from Friday to Sunday, went on a hut and really got to know each other. And that was when the reason I wanted to go to Start really proved itself. So we were like working on different cases, entrepreneurial wise. We were talking about different projects, opportunities, startups, ideas that you could start. And we were also like having a really, really good time. And what basically being at Start Munich is I guess, pretty similar to other initiatives, that you have a department where you work in, that you do some internal development of the initiative itself. But especially with Start, there's lots of discussion about new projects, about new ideas. Also, they are organizing many events with like already successful founders. But also like Road to Start Summit, as the Start Summit, a pitch event compared with kind of a trade fair with new startups. Like actually this week we are going to Berlin to visit like 10 startups, VCs, etc. Also organized from Start Munich. So there are many things that really empower the community building, and that you really get a good relationship with everyone, and can maybe then also find your co-founder at Start and start something together.
That's really awesome. I feel like we will definitely link down the informational videos on Start Munich and Academy Consult below, if some of this was a little bit of a jargon. And I feel like it's also interesting to know that you can join some of the initiatives. You don't have to choose just one. It can be a journey of kind of seeing what fits your personal development at the moment. And it's just such a value to be part of such a network, because I feel like I also read about the value of having a mentor maybe who's half a year ahead of you, not maybe 5 years, because then you're in a similar macroeconomic area, or you have similar challenges, and you can just kind of say, hey, how did you solve this problem? And I feel like communities like Start Munich are definitely the place to go for this.
100%, yeah.
Awesome. So this was like a really interesting interview. Thanks so much for everything you shared. Maybe as a closing remark, is there something you would like to share with our audience, like a tip or something you want to impart?
Yeah. So there may be two things. One, I already said, don't put too much effort in studies. Like there are so many other things where you can learn much more on a practical side, on a really like doing side, so where you can really work on your own project and learn much more, and also in these initiatives. And the second thing is really use the network Munich offers. Like Munich offers such great student initiatives, great networks behind this. Entrepreneur, for example, also a network that where so many initiatives are a part of, where you can really get to know basically someone from every area. Like if you use this network, be a successful startup founder in a couple of years, someone will be part of the VC, someone will be a partner at the BCG or so. Like there are so many crazy people here in Munich, and it's great to have a good time with them now, to really build a network, to enjoy also working in these initiatives. And as you already said, like the more you put in, the more you get out. And I think it's also a long-term investment when it comes to network, but also to know how to soft and hard skills. So really use this time that we now have as students to gain as many experience in these areas as possible.
Couldn't agree more, really. If you want to know all about Entrepreneur, there's also in the overview videos, so you can kind of have a look at that. But it's definitely, if you're part of one of them, you definitely have an easier access to get to know other people, and maybe use Spreadly for then having all your networks. So we'll be tuned for the updates. So thanks a lot, Darius. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mariana, for having me.